All right, well, let me do this. Boom. We're going to get started real quick here. Welcome, everybody. This is Invest NWI, Northwest Indiana's premier real estate investment group. We are 3.5 years into doing this group, and it's been fun, challenging at times, and we are now going to try our hand at going virtual here. So I'm not a big technology person, so trying to work through learning new software here and getting some stuff going. So tonight we have Brian Scanlon. Brian is with Caliber Home Loans, does residential loans here in the area. I've known Brian since probably about 2005. We used to play poker together, and we're on a church softball team together back in the day. He did my first mortgage when I bought my first house in Munster, and since then has done a few more for me. Just did another refinance with him about 3 weeks ago. We finished that up when the rates dropped to stupid low rates. I locked in at a 3% 15 years, so that was pretty cool. So we all know that a lot's going on right now. That's part of the reason why we can't meet tonight in person. And if you've been following stocks and real estate and oil prices today and the Cubs and everything, you'll see that everything's tanking. Or not really tanking. It's like a yo-yo. It's up and down and it's all over the place. But I know that specifically in real estate, a lot has changed in the lending arena. I've talked to a lot of agents that because of the changes, buyers have backed out, not because they don't want the house anymore, but because they're laid off. And obviously without a job, you can't get loans. Other situations have happened with people that haven't been able to find houses yet that now don't qualify because the guidelines have changed. So tonight we're going to talk about kind of what happens behind the scenes when a mortgage is originated, and then this happened to me on my first loan. It went from one bank to the other bank to the other bank. We'll talk about the behind the scenes stuff, and then Brian's going to talk about what's happened in the last couple of weeks with some of the changes with lending. I'm sure a lot of you saw the Chase Bank article that they were only lending to people that had stupid high credit scores and down payments and stuff like that. So he's going to talk about that. And then he's going to give his prediction on where he sees the market going to. If you have any questions and you're in the Facebook group, jot them in the comments here, and I will do my best to pick those out and answer it. Brian's going to talk, but at the same time, it's going to be a dialogue, so I'll throw some questions in there as well. If you are on the Zoom meeting, there is a chat menu somewhere. Throw the questions in there. And, I'll do my best to answer that. But let me, I posted a quick survey on Facebook, and it also went out to the folks that got the email. And for whatever reason, it's not letting me share my screen, but I'll just go through. Let me try this real quick. Stop share. We should be back. You see my ugly face now? By show of hands, who's ready for this stay-at-home order to be over?
Everybody.
My wife is not excited about being there we go. Let's try this one. Share. All right. You see the stats or not the stats, the survey I did? You see that, Brian? You're going to have to be my feedback.
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. There it is. So we had, what do we have here? 37 people respond. This was emailed out to like 800 people. So thank you for your feedback. And this, there's no science to this. This was just something I was curious to do. April, we know a lot of people aren't working. I think what, Brian, it's like 20% are unemployed right now.
Yeah, we're expecting this week to be over 20%, maybe even closer to 25.
Okay. So April rent collection, we had 53% say they collected everything, 7% collected at least 90%, 35% collected 80 to 90%, and then one individual said it sucked. National average was in the mid 80s, so these numbers are pretty consistent. The next question is, how do you expect May's collection to go relative to April? Half the group said it was the same. About 40% said it would be worse. The challenge with this question is I don't know, out of those responses, I don't know how you fared up here. So that question was kind of useless. I didn't realize that till the end of once the survey started. Housing values. I've seen all sorts of speculation on this, on Bigger Pockets, masterminds I'm in, all over the place. So where do you think the housing market will go in the next couple of months once the stay-at-home order is lifted? 19% said the market will stay the same and we will see lots of appreciation like we've seen in the last couple of years. 38% said it will stabilize, meaning it won't go up, won't go down. 43% are saying prices are going to have a little bit of a regression there. This is pretty consistent with what I've seen in other forums. So buying activity right now, we had 10 people said that they are holding off and staying on the sidelines for this to settle out. And we had 15 people, 60% say that they are buying anything that makes sense right now. Question 5, optimism on the real estate market. 64%, 23 respondents are saying we're going to be okay. 13% or 13 folks, 36% are saying that we've peaked and we're going to go on the backside of the hill. So a lot of folks have been saying for the last 2 or 3 years that we're going to reach the top anyway, and it's time for regression and everything's overpriced. So a lot of the other indicators, the supply of houses wasn't even at a place where we'd have some sort of regression there. Even before COVID started, we only had about 2,000 single family homes on the market in the Gunnar system, which is just about a month and a half of inventory. And that is stupid low. Back during the last recession, we were almost at 8 to 10 months of inventory, if not more at a time. So tons of inventory now. So as long as there's or no inventory, as long as we don't have inventory, it still is going to be a seller's market. We will see what happens because a lot of people are holding off from listing right now. So we'll see what happens when the stay-at-home order is lifted and all these houses that aren't being listed now are being flooded. I will say I've been tracking the daily stats for Gunnar, and the number of new listings that we've had for the last 30 days has been pretty consistent, around 40 to 45 a day. Houses that are being sold and going contingent has been in the 60 to 75 range. So we're continuing to decrease the inventory of houses. So it'd be interesting to see how the market spikes with new houses when people can list. Are the Bears making the playoffs? 20 people said no, another disappointing year. Well, 6 of you Bears fans said that it's going to be a great year. And then we had 10 people that said football sucks. So that's that. Any thoughts on those stats, Brian?
I'm going to start with the easy one. As much as I love the Bears, I just don't see it happening this year. I'm very curious. All signs indicate that, of course, the longer the recession goes, the more house prices have to go down because you're going to have a much smaller buyer pool. But at the same time, as you mentioned, we really don't have a lot of inventory, which keeps everything in our market in a pretty good shape.
Yep.
You said, you were talking about 8 to 10 months during the recession, but remember right after the recession, it was a massive buyer's market.
Yep.
So we've got way low supply now. We had way too much then. Somewhere in the 4 to 5 month range is about the middle. And I have a hard time seeing us get to 4 to 5 months anytime soon on supply.
I mean, you'd have to have a lot of houses listed at one point to even get there. when I got licensed back in 2018 in June, I started tracking the inventory and all that. And even back then, we had 3,500 houses on the market, so about 3 months of supply. So, I mean, I know coming into the coming off of the winter, you know, you usually have a big uptick in new listings now. So COVID's slowing that down, but you know, even in January and February before this was an issue, the inventory was still crazy low. So let me, I'm gonna go grab a water bottle real quick because I'm talking too much. Brian, I'll let you talk a quick second about the Bears if you want to do that.
I don't get to see any of the stats, so I can't do a show of hands, but I'm hopeful as ever. However, I can't see the Bears coming through with a big season out of the gate on this one. I see a chat button, and I'm wondering if I do see some stuff here. Hold on here. I see something from Eileen asking Adrian, what is it you're tracking daily? What? He tracks the daily listings that come on to the MLS with Ganire. Daniel Guerrero, Mitch Trubisky for president. President of what? That would be my only question there. All right. Adrian, I think we've covered everything. You missed all the good stuff. Hey, it was great talking to you. Take care.
That was good. Mitch Trubisky. That was fun. So we're done? Okay. Let me move into, and if my voice is scratchy tonight, it's not because I have COVID. I think I already had that a few months ago, but that's another story. Because we're so slow with appointments, I've been working on some houses, cleaning them out, gutting them, painting them, mudding, all that fun stuff. So my pencil pushing days are over. I'm going to do a success story tonight, and let me see if I can switch to that. This is weird. All right, let's do this one. Boom, boom, boom.
There it is.
Perfect. All right, it's not going to look the same as a regular PowerPoint, but I wanted to talk about this property real quick, and I threw this together pretty fast this afternoon, so if there's any spelling errors or that stuff, it happens, get over it. But this property, there's a lot of good lessons out of this property. And I don't want to say I'm an experienced investor. I've done a few flips. I started back in 2015, did my, with wholesaling, did a couple of flips in 2016. And it seems like every year I want to do more wholesales, but it seems like we're flipping more and more every year. So we have systems in place, and as much as we try to control the situations, occasionally it doesn't go as expected. And this was one where, it hit the fan, and we bought it in December of 2018, and literally from day one until almost 9 months later, it was issue after issue. So it turned out good. I'm glad that we got to experience this. I learned a lot from this property. But man, it was a painful 9 months to get it from what we got it when we started to the end product. So this is a brick 4-unit over off 175th and Hammond, right by the Columbia Center. And what I liked about it when I was looking at it is, one, I liked that it was brick. It was built, I believe, sometime in the 70s, so I wasn't dealing with knob and tube. I wasn't dealing with plaster and all of the other issues that we see in some of the older inventory in Hammond. Some of the, the roof, the gutters, those are all in really good condition. This was part of a portfolio of 5 houses in this 4-unit that I bought from an investor that was looking to retire. So for the 5 houses that are in Central Hammond, all around the City Hall area, Drackert, Lyons, Bauer, that area, 5 houses up there. And this 4-unit, I paid $220 for all of that. And when I split it up for the title work and stuff, I put the value of this property at $55,000, which was fair. Back in 2018, when I bought this, I thought this 4-unit was probably worth about 125 in pretty good condition. 3 of the units are 1-bedrooms, and then 1 of them is a studio. So again, I purchased it for,
It's real off center. I can't really see your screen.
whoa. Is that
There you
better?
go. Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. Cool. So did I lose that page? All right. So again, I purchased it for 55. 2 units were occupied, both of the 1-bedrooms. They were getting 450 and 550. 2 were vacant. My original plan was to put 10 to 12,000 into it, and I expected to get 600 for the 1 vacant and 550 for the or 500 for the studio. This is the 1-bedroom, what it looked like. Again, my plan was to redo the flooring. Each room had different flooring. The cabinets were good, solid cabinets. I was just going to paint the cabinets, put on new sink, new countertop, paint the walls, just some very moderate renovations. This is the studio unit. Kind of looks like it was lived in, kind of looks like it wasn't. So problem 1 started right away with the vacant unit. That was the one that I just showed there, the studio, where it had a bed. There's no flooring there. It's all concrete. I didn't have any contact information for the tenant. The number that I had was disconnected. The person I bought it from wasn't really all with it anymore, didn't know what was going on over there. I bought it in December. She didn't pay December's rent. She didn't pay January's rent. So what I did is I posted a notice on the door that she needed to pay or vacate. Her lease had like a emergency contact phone number and mailing address. Again, that phone number for the emergency contact didn't work. So I mailed that second address as well, posted the notice on the door. And then what I did is I went and I was there because I was dealing with the other unit and getting that started. I took pictures 2 or 3 times a week and cataloged them. This picture was taken on January 10th. I bought it on December 17th. That's when I posted the notice. So you can see almost a month later, nothing happened. Right as we hit day 30, I cleaned it out. And that night she called me and she's like, "Where's all my stuff?" Cussing me out. I'm like, "You didn't have anything there. You abandoned it." She's like, "I had food in the fridge." And I'm like, "You did, except your food had expired. This milk was from November 25th. That bottle was so big, it was about to explode." And I had talked with an attorney on this, and he was like, "Dude, you're fine. You took plenty of time. It's clear that for the average person, they would have thought that she abandoned it." So to try to appease the tenant, she only had a $100 security deposit, so I just gave her that and signed it. She was done, and we moved on. So I found, I did scope of work, hired a contractor, gave him a little bit of money up front, bought all the material, had it delivered. First issue that we have with the material, the flooring was delivered on a Friday morning, and only one person had the combo for the lockbox there. And when I went Monday morning, I was missing 14 boxes here. So those boxes are about $50 a piece. That's about $700 in flooring that was missing. Contractor, of course, didn't know where it went. No, he didn't know who borrowed it. I thought maybe the end unit who had done some work for the previous owner, maybe he put it in his unit. I got in that, it wasn't there. So a couple days later, I see all the flooring just all over the place, and I asked the contractor, I'm like, "What the heck's going on?" And with wood, you need to let it acclimate to the temperature. This is vinyl. It doesn't matter if it's frozen or hot or what. It's not going to change size like wood would. But he was just, even though I had already been in the unit for a week, he needed it to acclimate to the temperature in the unit. So he opened the boxes, threw it all over the place. That should have been clue 1 that I was going to have an issue. But anyhow, we started the rehab late January. This is a brand new window he put in. Long story short, every week I'd go, hardly anything was done. It was like he was doing 1 or 2 hours of work a week. One of the challenges I had is I hired him for 2 projects, and I gave him 25% of the labor up front, which was about $7,000. One of the projects he couldn't pull a permit for because he had a commercial license with Hammond, and it was a single family home, so they wouldn't let him pull a permit for the house, even though he could pull a permit for the 4-unit that's considered commercial. They wouldn't let him do the house. So he's like, well, instead of me giving you the money back, I'll just hold on to this, because that the amount that he had was everything for this house. So that was my problem. I should have got it back. The challenge with that is I had no leverage. He was going so slow, I couldn't fire him because I'm like, I'm already out the $7,000. I need him to finish it. So I gave him way too much time. By the end of March, we finally fired him. Well, he said he was done anyway. You can see some of the finished product here. This is where he used his hole saw to cut the hole in the countertop to put the sink in. The windows, the width of the window was 104 inches, and it was one big window. So we wanted to divide into 3 windows. So instead of getting, maybe 98 inches of window and then you have gaps between the windows for wood, he bought whatever configuration 104 inches. So there's no space between the windows. He put the wood on the outside, and the inside is just like to hold it back up. But you could push the windows. They were garbage. You can see his trim work here. It was just complete junk. That's how he left the sink. So Justin and we threw all his junk out 1st of April, told him he's done. We fired him. And what we ended up having to do is we hired a new contractor, EMH Construction, and we had to redo everything that he did. The cabinets that he painted, I don't know what he did, but he trashed them. The wood was all smashed on those. The windows we ripped out. They had screws in the wrong places. They weren't even the right size. All the flooring was jacked up. He didn't lay it. Everything came out. So ballpark on that one is, I'm guessing we lost in labor and materials somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000. We were able to save some of the flooring that was in full pieces, but it was just junk. So we redid everything, started that in mid-April. And by that point, the unit A we had evicted. She was a pain in the butt too. She's crying at 2:00 on a Saturday that we're too loud and she's trying to sleep. So we got her out and decided to renovate that one as well. So all 3 units got fully renovated. You can see on the picture on the left, we did new cabinets, new trim, new flooring. We do put granite in our rentals. We had to do brand new bathroom. The first contractor jacked up stuff with the traps and the water lines, so we had to redo all that. So one of the value adds we did, there was an old laundry room on the back. That's why one of the units is only a studio and not a 1-bedroom. That was converted to a storage for the guy. He stored appliances there and other junk that he used on other buildings. So we converted that back to a laundry room. We had to get a licensed plumber in there to bring the water back in, replace the water heater. We had to we added a little gas heater in there because of the plumbing. Got coin-op laundry. So we did that. Unit A, B, and C were the ones that got full renovations. A and B were the 1-bedroom. They rented super fast. We get $750 for those. Unit C is a studio. We get $550 for those. Unit D, I inherited a long-term lease on that. It was, he was at like $550, I think, but then I paid all the utilities. So I kept him at $550, but he started paying his own NIPSCO. So all in all, it's getting $2,600 a month plus the laundry money. I love this property because NIPSCO is individually metered, so they pay all that. Water on this building is only about $90 a month, really, really low. Garbage is only $50 a month. Taxes are really, really low. It was only assessed when I bought it at $50, and even this year it didn't go up a lot. Insurance of that. So net income on the property after, and I deducted the management, property management on that since I don't manage my properties. Net income $22,000. We put in $75,000 in rehab, and that counts the money that we had lost to the first person. So sold it for $200,000. They had no issues appraising out. I mean, everything in the property was new. All the windows in every unit new. The roof was only 5 years old. We replaced at least 3 of the furnaces, all the water heaters. So we put a lot more than the initial 10 to 12 that I expected into it, but it came out to a great property. Net income on that property was right at $80,000. I owned that for just over a year and a half. So that net income includes the rent that I had collected on the way, although for the majority of the time the rent was just the one unit, but the rent and the sales proceeds. So that was a fun property. Biggest lessons there. Again, I had a scope of work with the first guy. I vetted him with the city. They didn't have any issues. He had good reviews on Facebook. And I don't know if I could have done anything as far as hiring him. I shouldn't have paid him as much labor up front. In fact, I don't pay any labor up front now. Complete work, and then you get paid at the end of the week. I should have, honestly, if I could go back and do anything differently, I would cut my losses back in instead of waiting till April. I should have cut my losses in February, late February, when I knew there was issues. Again, I had paid him all that money, so I was trying to milk him out for a little bit more work. But, you know, I lost all the holding costs. I lost out on lost rent and all that. I'm going to jump over Facebook. No, the contractor, Jim, was Maintenance Solutions. You can find them on Facebook. They're not in the group anymore. They've been kicked out. A couple of people wanted me to go after their bond and stuff for the city, but it just wasn't worth it. If you have any questions, throw it in the chat box if you're on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, throw it in the comments section there. So the person who bought it got a commercial loan with US Bank that went through Casey, who is the commercial vendor for the group. I don't remember what the rate was, but it was stupid low. It was at like 4%. His mortgage payment on it, man, it's only like $800. So he's getting a ton of cash flow. So let me jump on here. Eric asks, how do you suggest a rehab project is best handled for out-of-state investors? That's a great question, Eric. And for that, you're just going to have someone good local that you trust, whether that's a property manager, could be a project manager, could be a real estate agent, but someone that you can trust. And I would encourage you, and this goes whether you're doing, you know, out-of-state, in-state, doing a rental rehab or a flip, you want to buy your material. If you're hiring a contractor that is going to charge you 50 grand to do a flip, or you should call it a renovation, and they're buying material and labor and all that, they're not going to buy the material that you want. They may not design it the way you want. So I control all aspects of the material. I buy it all. I have Home Depot ship it to the house. That way I pick it. You know, if I'm a contractor and I'm buying material, I'm probably buying cheaper stuff because that's going to increase my margins and make more profit. So I only pay labor only. I would encourage you, Eric, to do the same thing. And then whoever is local, you know, I'm working on a flip right now in Hammond, and it was supposed to be a 5-week project. Labor on it was $22,000. So for 5 weeks, I divide that out. That's I'm paying them $4,000 a week with an extra $2,000 on the back end once we pass the inspection. So if I go to the property on a Friday and I don't feel like they did $4,000 in work, they're not getting paid. They started the project 3.5 weeks ago. I've only made one payment so far, not because of them. It's because, you know, one of them is quarantined and they're being cautious because of the stay-at-home thing. But that way I could, if I had done that, I could have cut my losses a lot earlier because I didn't have the money back out. Did I think about wanting to BRRRR the property? Daniel asked that. This one was a tough one for me to sell because quality building, brick, everything's updated. So I knew the CapEx was going to be delayed if, you know, I wasn't going to deal with that. So when I bought the package of properties for 220 after rent operations, tax operations, and all that, my closing cost was only about 200,000. I had a private lender on that, Daniel, on all 6 properties, the 5 houses and the 4 unit. And part of my cost that came out of my net profit was the interest that I was paying to that individual. So my loan with that individual was 200,000. So when I sold the property, my walk away after giving my buyer tax credits and security deposits, I walked away with $196,000. So what I did is I just paid off the loan completely. So now I don't have any debt on those 5 houses. So that was the main reason why I sold that property, was basically I have 5 houses that I essentially got for free, if that makes sense. So let me jump on Facebook. Jeremy, lesson learned with a contractor, it's always best to just rip the Band-Aid off and move on. I agree. At that time, Jeremy, we were dealing with an employee that was missing a lot of work and some other issues. So it was just one of those things. This just kind of got bumped to the last, the back burner. Jim asked me, what about hiring my own crew and keeping it in-house? Definitely something I've thought about because of how many flips we're doing right now. A lot of logistics go into that as far as putting it into a different company with its own work comp and its own liability and bonds and insurances and licenses and all that. So definitely something that Justin and I toss around pretty often. So, but no, if you guys have any questions on flipping or rentals or boards or anything like that, I mean, I'm super slow right now. I'm just painting houses right now. So give me a call and I'm happy to chat about that a little bit more. But let's get into talking about money. And Brian, I'll let you get started. Just kind of give us the overview on, kind of like the $30,000 or 30,000 foot elevation overview on how lending works, what happens behind the scenes, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, so everybody, I imagine most of you guys are aware, and I'll keep this part real simple, right? But there are 3 main, well, let's just say there's 4 main types of lenders out there, right? You got banks, you've got brokers, and then you've got non-bank lenders, okay? So mortgage companies, however you want to call them, all right? But those get split into 2 because some of them service loans and some don't service loans. And right now there's been issues more with servicers, but that's going to extend into the whole of the market here pretty soon. So the 4 main types out there, right? Most of you guys have dealt with any one or maybe even all 4 of those, all right? We all work the same though. You guys come, you get a mortgage through us, we end up selling that mortgage to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or if you're getting a government-backed loan, we sell it to Ginnie Mae, okay? And then it's just a question of whether or not we keep the servicing rights or we sell that off to another lender, all right? And while COVID's been going on, all of that was actually, there was even bigger issues in the market before COVID that were exacerbated by COVID, all right? And that's kind of what we've been dealing with and what I'll talk about a little bit here as we get through this. But, that's your starting point for all loans, right? Is you get a loan and it ends up with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Ginnie Mae. The only ones that don't would be, right, jumbo loans, anything over $510,000 this year, or what we would just call non-QM loans. You used to call them subprime loans, just loans that aren't really standard. They don't fit a box. They go straight to private investors. Where do you want to start, Adrian?
Let's talk about 30 days ago for someone, you got FHA and conventional. What were the typical requirements for those 2 types of loans pre-COVID?
Okay. Most lenders were in the same position, all right? Most of us would give loans for FHA, VA, or USDA at credit scores down to 580, all right, minimum down. And conventional loans for almost everybody was 620. Right? Now, there's always lenders out there that will do loans that most won't do, right? There's always a few that will handle a 550 credit score or a high DTI or whatever you might have out there. But that's the great majority of lenders were there. 580 minimum, 620 unconventional.
What kind of DTIs were you seeing?
Okay, so DTI, remember, debts versus income. That's a big ratio to all lenders. In general, a lot of the programs have a stated maximum of 45%, but in reality, quite a few of them would go up to 50%. So a lot of people were getting conventional loans, 47, 48, 49% debt to income ratio. People were getting government loans. A lot of banks were doing them well above 50%. Well above would be 52, 53. Okay. The highest I saw, I guess in the last couple of years, I saw 56.99 got approved. I've heard of others, talked to some friends of mine at other lending companies, and I'm hearing even bigger numbers, but that was, you're pushing the envelope once you start getting above 50%.
And that's gross income, so that doesn't even factor taking out their taxes and all that as well. So
Absolutely correct.
So let's talk about, golly, we've been dealing with this 4 or 5 weeks already. What were some of the first changes that you saw, and kind of walk us through what's happened in the last 30 days with lending?
All right, let me talk about changes first, right? So for all you guys out there who are trying to go out, you're either rehabbing a house, you're trying to do a cash out refinance, whatever's happening, right? Almost all of you guys are working with conventional. So we're going to skip away from FHA. There's plenty of changes to FHA. I guess when you're selling a house, some of your buyers might be coming in FHA or VA. And that was one of the first big changes. Most lenders upped their credit scores. Some went to 620, some went to 640. I heard a couple at 660, but that was the general market. I'd say probably 80-90% of the lenders were somewhere between 620 and 640 for new FHA loans. Okay, so when you're selling off your rehab projects, many of those people want to go FHA. That's what they're dealing with now. Instead of 580, they got to go to 620. For those of us who watch credit and look at scores, that doesn't seem like a big change, and it probably isn't. It might exclude 10 or 15% of the people who might have been looking at your house. Okay, but a smaller pool still means you got bigger issues. On FHA, also most lenders then put in a few extra requirements. We call them overlays. Anyone who remembers the crash back in 08, 09 remembers that lenders had all sorts of extra rules. But again, I don't feel that there's anything real restrictive. Conventional loans stayed at 620. Nothing really changed. We got a little tighter, okay, in terms of how we watch it. The biggest issue a lot of lenders face with a conventional loan right now is trying to re-verify employment, right? So of course, if you've got a steady job, you're an hourly or a salaried worker, during the process of the loan, of course, we call and we verify you're employed. Now, we have to call 3 days before the closing and re-verify that you're employed. And what happens is a lot of the HR people are working from home too, and they don't always return those calls right away. So we've seen closings get pushed and everyone's getting all the way to the end. The closing package can't leave to go to the title company until we re-verify that employment. So now you're seeing closings happen and the package doesn't show up till the night before, the morning of. And honestly, it's just a shit show for some of that stuff, but there's not a way around it right now. That's what we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, we're dealing with the one with Fifth Third, and we're 9 weeks in to escrow, and the buyer is well qualified, 30% down, conventional, income over 100 grand, and they just keep delaying and delaying and delaying.
Yeah, there's no way for me to speak about what their process is. I couldn't tell you what the issue is on that.
What's happening to the loans that aren't going through because the people lost their job? Are they kind of going into a holding pattern, or what's happening on your end with those?
I know what my company's doing with that, and I think that's what most companies are doing, okay? As I ask around, I'm getting a little bit different answers, but most companies, I believe, created, we call it a parking lot at our company, right? We're halfway through the loan process and we realize the buyer lost their job. All right, we just put the entire thing on hold and we let it sit. When we can verify that they're working again, then we'll go back and resume the activity. But the lender doesn't want to try and go purchase, we don't want to process 500 loans and find out only 100 of them close. Right? It's a lot of work for the operation staff. So this whole thing comes to a grinding halt. It stops. We push it to the side. The only thing that's going to make us pick it up again is finding out that they're working. And hopefully that happens before the rate lock expires. I know at one point there were discussions about lenders canceling those loans and making people restart, but I don't know that that really happened. I haven't actually heard of anyone who truly did that. They may have, but I think most companies now are creating some type of a hold.
Now, is there a new guideline too where they have to pull credit if it's over a certain age from when they last pulled it now?
At my company, it used to be a credit report was good for 120 days.
Okay.
We're now currently at 60 days.
Your company or general?
My company, okay? Now, again, this is one I can't speak for sure on what some of the others did. But think about this. Somebody gets pre-approved, I run a credit report, let's just say on April 1st, right? And today is the 20th. They find a house today and they negotiate and they say, hey, my closing is going to be June 5th. Well, that means they're going to be past 60 days on day of closing. That means I got to rerun that credit report. So hopefully they weren't borderline. Hopefully they were strong enough that another credit pull isn't really going to hurt them too much.
Okay. They didn't buy furniture to furnish the house.
Whatever. People do all sorts of stupid stuff, right? I mean, they'll buy anything.
Well, let's talk a little bit because they're making headlines. Chase is really making their guidelines a lot tougher for the average buyer. Overview what they've been doing and what's your thoughts on what position they're taking, and do you think other lenders will follow suit?
So as I mentioned, most lenders have increased right to 620. Maybe a few went to 640. Okay. Chase suddenly comes out with the announcement that they're going to go to 700. The view of most of us in the industry is that they are truly just simply trying to protect their own client base, right? Chase has so many customers, they're just going to focus on their own people, write those top end loans and go and deal with it. Chase still writes FHA loans, so they could still take some of those people with a 650 or 680 and push them towards FHA. But it's a step back for one of the largest banks in the country, right? To say, hey, we're just going to hold off on some of this stuff. Do I see others following suit? At this point, I don't, because I think they would have done it fairly quickly. Had they been discussing it, they would have let Chase go first, and then they would have made the announcement a couple days later. So I think the others are holding steady.
Let's talk a little bit about forbearance. You see that all over Facebook and that. How are the banks and lenders dealing with people that aren't working and can't pay right now? And what are some of the pros and cons of what's going on with that?
Okay, so this is a biggie. This actually, you know what? Let me tie this one into the group here. You guys have rentals, and of course, people are telling you, hey, we can't pay, we can't pay, we can't pay. Okay. Now, I don't know, is there any type of national act that allows them to skip X amount of months, or is it just a month-to-month thing between a tenant and landlord right now? Do you know, Adrian?
I mean, most areas can't do any evictions, so
Okay.
we're kind of just in a holding pattern with people that aren't paying.
Got it. All right. So think of it this way. You guys are going to not collect rent, but if you've got a loan on the property, does that mean you get to skip your mortgage payment with no repercussions? Not really. Okay. There's still going to be some repercussions. So ultimately, the government comes out with what they call the CARE Act, and they tell homeowners across the country, hey, listen, you can skip up to 3 months payments. Okay. And you may have heard articles, hey, you can skip 6 months, 12 months, whatever. But ultimately, the tool is forbearance. That's what was given to us. So all the lenders went into said, hey, we can offer you forbearance. All that means is if your payment is $1,500 a month, you can skip 3 payments. But on that 4th month, you owe me all 3 payments, $4,500, plus you owe me that month, so you now owe me $6,000.
Good luck.
Right. Of the people who are skipping payments in the country, how many of them are going to come up with 4 payments all at once? right? The percentage is tiny. So what does that do to a lender though? It's the same as you. As the landlord still has to make a payment to the mortgage company, we're the lender, we still have to pay Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Remember, we don't own the loan, we only own the servicing of the loan. So we still have to make payments to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac when that happens, and that has to be cash out of our own pockets. So the problem in the lending field is how much cash does each lender have and how much can we come up with and still stay in business, right? Because we need cash not just to pay those payments, we need cash to run our business just like anything else. I was writing this out. We ran into actually three things. You were talking about the last 30 days, right? That was one of the questions. Let me give you just a real quick recap on something here, okay? I wrote a couple dates down. On Friday, February 28th, rates began to start getting real low to the point where a lot of people started considering refinancing, okay? For a couple months leading up to that, they had been dipping lower, but they never really got low, okay? Friday, February 28th, rates began to dive, and on March 9th, 10 days later, rates hit their peak, right? The lowest point for a little while before they started to turn around. That's where we started to see volatility. So think of a trading chart, right? Every day, here's where mortgage bonds hit their bottom and their top, okay? And this range is usually about maybe 25 to 40 basis points per day from that top to the bottom. I wrote a couple dates down. On March 9th, the trading range was 95 basis points. Remember, lenders are trying to price loans properly, except that we didn't do this, we did this, right? On March 10th, 97 basis points. On the 11th, 105, and on the 12th, 206 basis points. That was the range. So lenders are trying to price loans, and we're trying to hedge those prices in the secondary market. If you get a loan from us, we have to lock that loan, we lock that rate, which means we pay a hedging cost, that's cash. Okay, but what if that hedging cost is no good anymore? What if you don't close on that loan? We lose that money. This kept going for the next several days, and as a matter of fact, Adrian, I wrote this down. March 19th, the trading range was 321 bips, and on March 20th, 386.
That's crazy.
It's nearly unheard of, okay? But yet that's what lenders were dealing with and trying to put out a rate sheet and trying to price loans and then lock them. That's when we started seeing really weird things happening on FHA loans, government bonds were crashing, everything was happening all at once, okay? But ultimately, a lot of this all comes down, for lenders, it comes down to cash, all right? If you want to lock a loan, if someone locks a loan with us, we pay a hedging in the secondary market, that's cash, okay? When we fund that loan, when we close on a mortgage, we have to use our own credit lines, that's cash, to help do that before we can sell the loan to Fannie Mae and get that money back, okay? And then of course, now that we're in this servicing market, once people quit making payments to us, we have to pay Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac every month out of our own pocket. So it's all cash. So the way I wrote it was, think of it this way, guys. Here's what was happening to lenders. Let's just say you guys each own 10 rentals. Each of them's worth 100,000, right? When you took out the loan, you had to put 20% down. So you owe 800,000 on a $1 million portfolio, right? Okay, so Adrian, guy down the street just happens to sell his house for 90,000 one day. Okay, we're talking about margin calls to a lender. All of a sudden, I come to you and I say, hey, Adrian, someone just sold their house for 90,000. All 10 of your houses are now worth 90,000. I immediately devalue your portfolio in a heartbeat. Okay? So now you owe 800 grand on $900,000 worth of property. You're at 88% loan to value. But we, as the lender, had told you can't be over 80% loan to value. I now have a margin call. I come to you and say, Adrian, you owe us $80,000 in cash to get down to a 720 loan balance. And by the way, you have a week to do that. how likely is it you're going to come up with 80 grand in that week?
It depends on the day, but yeah, maybe one time.
Depends on the day, depends on how much cash you had when you started, right?
Yep.
So that's what margin calls were doing to lenders. Lenders were facing margin calls over devalued businesses. All right. I know, well, I'm not going to get into companies, but I heard people writing checks for 36 million, 75 million. Okay. And I know there were companies writing it larger than that. I just don't know the numbers. All right. These are one-time costs, just came up like that. All right. So now let's keep going. You guys, so that's, you know, if you devalue the mortgage company, we have to come up with more cash. Now we have a problem. But now here's the second thing that happened all at the same time. Mortgage bonds crashed. What do? You own, let's just say you've got another 10 houses you own. Those are free and clear. So normally what you would probably do is say, look, I got to come up with 80 grand cash. I'm going to go borrow money against the other houses, right? Or you could sell them, or you could do whatever you need to do. Right? But all of a sudden, at the same time, we tell you, hey, those houses are no longer worth 90, right? They're not worth 90. And we're only going to give you 50% of what they're worth. Oh, and by the way, I want 12% interest, and I'm going to charge you $7,000 in fees on every loan you take out.
Jeez.
You want to go take out a loan right now?
Well, you'd almost, to save the other 10 houses, you have to.
Right? So lenders got pushed in a position, we had to sell off bonds, but we didn't have a choice. We had to sell everything off at a bad price. Well, what did that do to our cash reserves? It's depleted everything. Okay? Now, here's the last thing that happens, right? During all this, of course, we got the pandemic, and the government creates the CARE Act and says you guys can skip 3 months payments. Well, as we just said, you and I both know those people aren't making it up in the 4th month, right?
Nope.
Okay, what happens to people at the end of 3 months when they can't make it up? They're allowed to have another 3 months. So now they're going to skip 6 payments. What's the likelihood they're going to make it up to us in 6 payments?
0.
Okay. So what happens at that point? Now we can put them into a mortgage modification. All right, so now we modify the mortgage, we tack it on at the back end, but did we get our cash back when we did that?
Nope.
We're still out cash. All right. So the question is, if you're a lender, right? If you're the landlord and you're in that situation, nobody's making their rent, not nobody, but a lot of people aren't making their rent payment. You still owe on your mortgages. How long can you do that? 1 month, 3 months, 5, 10? It all depends on how much cash you started with and how much cash you can raise in the meantime, right?
Yep.
Same for lenders, okay? So some of them have a lot of cash. Some of them have a little bit of cash. Some of them don't service loans, so they don't face that issue. Some of them are banks. What does a bank do if they've got to raise cash? They can go to the Fed and borrow money currently at the Fed rate of 0%.
That's a good loan.
That'd be a real nice loan. But non-bank mortgage companies, they're the ones who really got hit pretty hard on this stuff. Okay? So now the big question I ask a lot of real estate agents, and they say, well, listen, the lender I send my business to, they don't service loans, so they don't have this issue? Well, that's true. They don't have the issue now, but ultimately they still have to sell a loan to servicing companies. What do you think the servicing company is going to do? Keep paying them the same money? If the value of everything's down, they're going to get paid less.
Yep.
So this trickles down all the way through banks and the lending system as it goes. Might take another month or two, but it's going to level the playing field as it goes. That's
So
what
to make the loans more appealing to the secondary market, is that why the banks are basically making the loans with better borrowers?
That's one reason. Okay. If we look at it, what we talk about is, I mentioned very casually, I mentioned government mortgage bonds had crashed at one point. And here's what happened. As we realized how far this had spread and what the impact was going to be on jobs, right? As we all started to realize, hey, wait a minute, there's going to be a lot of jobs lost here. Well, the first thought is, for a mortgage lender, how many people are going to skip their payment, right? Well, if I gave somebody a loan with a 740 credit score, 20 years on the job, gave them $100,000 on a $300,000 house, probably those people are better suited to make their payment for a longer time,
Mhm.
as opposed to the guy who borrowed 96.5% and has been on his job a year and a half and, took out an FHA loan. So everybody realized real quick, low credit scores, okay, and high loan to value means you're going to see a lot more payments skipped. And here's a quick stat. I just pulled this one up tonight. Housing Wire released a statement as per the Mortgage Bankers Association. I'm going to read this one. For the week ending April 12th, forbearance increased from 3.74% to 5.95%. That's a 1 week increase. Ginnie Mae, which is your government bonds, okay, FHA, VA, USDA, they went from 5.89 up to 8.26. So 8.25% of every FHA, VA, and USDA loan is now in forbearance. For conventional loans, it's up to 4.64. All right, well, that makes sense. We all know stronger buyers can hold out a little bit longer, right?
Right.
So, yeah, a company like Chase says, listen, we're only going to do loans for 700 credit score. That's not the worst idea in the world if you can get away with it, because what are the odds they're going to have to lose out on people not making payments, right? They're trying to shorten their odds.
Yep. Now, you talked about modifications, which most likely, a lot of these forbearances will probably lead to modifications. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I had a conversation with a bunch of people when this all started, and jobs are being laid off, and these folks were basically saying that there's going to be a ton of short sales, a ton of REOs, a ton of foreclosures, a ton of dispressed assets hitting the market very, very quickly. What's your thoughts on what we'll see in the foreclosure? And even if we do have a spike in foreclosure, we're still probably 6 to 12 months away from that anyway before they're even available for us investors to buy. But it seems like after 2008, the banks and the feds are doing as much as possible to avoid that again by printing all this money. So what's your thoughts on foreclosures and how many we'll see?
One of the big differences between the crash in 08 and today is that people have more equity in their houses. Okay, we saw prices fall massively after the 08-09 crash, right? And people wanted to get out and they couldn't. There was no way to do that. Anytime you've got a lot of people out of work, right? And we said earlier that number's probably going to crest over 20% this week. It might even get close to 25%. And to give you an idea, those are numbers higher than the 08 recession. When you get a lot of people out of work, of course, they have to get rid of the mortgage. They got to dump it, or they might get foreclosed. And yes, there's going to be a glut on the market at some point. Will it depress prices? Yes. However, I think more people are going to be able to take advantage of modifications this time around than last time, which means they won't necessarily lose the home. Okay. And the only thing that's going to stop them from doing is it might stop them from purchasing a new home for a couple of years, right? They get that modification, and they've got to wait a little while before they can go out and purchase again. So you might see a few people on the demand side who can't purchase that might have wanted to. You'll see a little bit of a glut on foreclosures because there's no way to avoid it. But I don't think you'll see it anywhere near the 08 levels, and I don't think you're going to see prices drop as much. We talked about earlier that, in the broadcast, right? The housing supply in this area is really short. It is in a lot of areas of the U.S., but we've got a very high demand. We've still got a lot of people moving across the border from Illinois, and we haven't seen any real slowdown in this in the last 2.5 years. All right, we might see a slowdown, but I don't personally think we're going to see a massive price drop across the board.
No, I agree. I mean, I think the big thing, like back in 08, I had my insurance company going on, so I was dealing with people all the time that were out of work and needing help with their payments and all that. And a lot of them, their banks back then weren't willing to do modifications, which made sense because the people weren't working. So for the bank, it just made sense to go to foreclosure because modifying someone that doesn't have income isn't going to solve their problem. Now it's totally different because this is almost an artificial unemployment spike temporarily while we're dealing with the virus. Once the virus is done, not everybody, because there are going to be some businesses that don't open back up or whatever, but a good majority of the people that are off are going to go back to work. So it's going to be a lot easier for a bank to look at that individual. Hey, you're back at work now. You've been there 3 years. That was only, you're off 60 days because of the virus. Yeah, we'll modify your loan because they don't want to be stuck with a bunch of REOs at the end of the day. They make more money when the loans are performing. So I don't think we'll see a little spike, but I don't think it's going to be what some investors had hoped for.
No, I agree. I don't think the banking industry, or the U.S. Treasury wants to go through all that again.
No.
2-3 more years of foreclosures and short sales is not on anybody's radar at this point.
I mean, that took 4 years to go from when it started to when prices hit rock bottom and finally started to go back up. So nobody wants to go through that again. Let's say Holcomb extended the stay-at-home order to May 1st today. A lot of other states close to us right now are still in that May 1st range as well. Let's say that sticks. May 1st, we can go back to work. Businesses open up. Shortly after that, maybe restaurants open up if they phase it in. But let's say for the most part, 50, 60% of people May 1st are back at work. They're off unemployment. What's your thoughts on any long-term ramifications of the last 60 days?
If everybody gets back, if we start opening up in a couple weeks and it starts to go back, I think we're going to see, I think it'll take a good 60 to 90 days after that for people start to feel real comfortable buying again. I think there'll be an initial rush. People who were already planning on doing it had to wait. Then I think it slows down for a little bit. I think we see a normal rush again like we would normally. People want to get into a new school system before the year starts. But ultimately, I think it would just be a pause. If we can open up again in May, it would be a pause. The problem is you're going to see is people who were out of work got behind even 1 month on some bills or got real tight and they had to suck up all the money they had toward that down payment, right? Mm-hmm. Right? You got 20-25% of the people buying in this market with next to nothing down, 3.5%, 5% at most. Maybe that's even short. Might be 40% of the people buying with that much. So best case, they used up their savings and now they got to wait to replenish. Maybe 60, 90 days back at work, they can get ready to purchase again. Okay. The longer this goes, however, is where it becomes a problem. Okay. So once you see if it were to get extended again and we keep going out, next thing you know, we're into June and we're not reopening till another 6 weeks, and then it starts to ramp up from there, and the open takes another 2 to 3 months. And now you've got a lost season basically, right?
Yeah.
I think at that point you start saying, okay, let's get everybody ready to purchase next year, and hopefully we can have a banner year next year. But until people know that they feel safe enough to go outside and do everything, and until they know that they're back full time and they're not going to worry about any second wave or whatever, I don't think we'll see a huge glut, a huge rush of buying.
I will say the houses that I've been following that are vacant, that are priced right, even in the last 4 or 5 weeks, they've still been going fairly quick, week, 2 weeks on the market. So the ones that are going to struggle are going to be the owner-occupied, or not owner-occupied, just occupied in general, where people don't want to go in an occupied house. So that's...
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There's plenty of people out there to purchase, right, for the inventory we have. It's just a question of when does the whole general public feel like they're back in a position, they've got some money in the bank, and they're ready to roll, and they're really comfortable that their job isn't going to get interrupted again.
Let me, if you have any questions, that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk to. It was it's reassuring to talk with you on this situation because you see so much junk on Facebook and the fake news networks and all that. A lot of it's fear mongering too. And I think the reality is this is totally different from '08. And once people are back working because of our lack of inventory and, a bunch of other issues, I think there'll be a little decline in, not decline in pricing. Some stuff might take a little bit longer to sell just because your buyer pool is a little bit smaller. But I think for the most part, unless something additional happens in the economy, nationally or in the entire, globally, I think we'll be okay. I mean, okay, I know there's a lot of people on here that are full-time flippers and they do, a house a month, 5, 6, 7 houses a month. I mean, okay, in the sense you're going to survive. We're all losing income because we can't find the inventory that we want right now. I was talking with someone about the sheriff's sales. They're not doing the May sale. And then as far as my understanding is, for a house to get on a sale, they need to be notified 60 days prior to the sale. I don't think they can do the notification. And I think Mike Kovechkov's on here, so correct me if I'm wrong if you're still on here, Mike. But the courts can't even do the notification until the stay-at-home order is lifted. I mean, no one's even working at the county buildings. So if they lift the stay-at-home order May 1st, then you can do your 60-day notification for the sale. We're looking at August, September being the first months that we're back at the sheriff's sale. So it will be an interesting summer. I think we'll be okay unless something else happens. But it was good to hear from you to know that banks aren't totally freaking out yet. And other than some FHA buyers and people that are spending their down payment, there's still plenty of buyers out there.
Yeah, there was a couple week period where we all got scared. And there was a lot of back and forth and people started to take some drastic measures for a couple days. But for the most part, I think almost everybody's got it figured out and is priced right at this point. I do see a couple questions here in the chat. Are you seeing these?
I am. You see Kyle's about I was holding off on some of these because they weren't related to the current situation, but they're good. We got another 10, 15 minutes. They're
Yeah,
good.
let me go through and take a peek at a couple of these and I'll take a crack.
Yep.
Kyle, this one's a pretty specific one and it deals with stuff other than this. So, I mean, Adrian, are you okay if I give out my number or my email?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So after this is done, if you guys want to email me any question, I'll respond. My email is Brian, BRIAN .Scanlon, SCANLON @caliberhomeloans.com. If you want to call me to talk about anything, I'm at 219-730-1822. But Kyle, that one's pretty specific, and I don't want to try and go down that road in this forum here. I see from Kevin, will lenders push payments out to the back? Yeah, but that comes after a couple terms of forbearance possibilities. We were talking about that one just a little while ago. Eileen's asking who got the shortest end of the stick. I don't know. I'm not sure who we're counting as, in that group, right? At this point, I mean, ultimately, right, you got homeowners who got a pretty nice deal when they're allowed to skip if they want to. You've got, in this form, right, we got a lot of people here who own properties and are collecting rent. Well, you guys certainly got screwed because if you've got the properties mortgaged, you don't really, you're stuck in the same boat, right? Maybe you could skip a couple months mortgage, but it's going to be real hard to catch up, and it is going to affect you. So landlords definitely are catching it in my world. And then, of course, companies who service loans are certainly having to deal with a lot of cash going out, but it just depends on how strong we were at the beginning.
Brian, Jack in the Facebook group asked how lenders are verifying debt. What's the process to verify debt and debt payments for the DTI?
So all lenders look at a couple things. Of course, your credit report shows almost all the loans, and then we always ask you for your last 2 months worth of bank statements. And what we look at on those bank statements is not just the balance or the deposits, but we look to see if there's any outgoing, right, month after month. If I see money going out to a source I'm not sure where that is, then we're going to ask you about it and see if that's actual debt, if you have some type of a loan out there.
Trent asked, and I don't know if you can answer this one, but I'll do my best. Are we seeing price drops already? It seems like at the moment a seller would accept less just to get a buyer. Of those who are still out there. Trent, I've been tracking the day-to-day stats for Gunnar. So I look at new listings, price increases, price decreases, back on market, contingents, pendings, and sold. And honestly, I have not seen, it's really just been in the last day or two where I've seen a couple of spikes in price reductions. But for the most part, they've been fairly stable for the last 4 or 5 weeks. The only thing that I really can't track because our MLS Gunnar system, the software is kind of junk, and I may get an ethics fine for saying it's garbage. I wanted to go back and look at how many new listings were done last year, but it's not easy to do that. So I can't tell if the new listings, even though they've been consistent for the most part every week over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I can't tell how that compares to, say, April 20th of last year when the weather was pretty good back then. But for the most part, I haven't seen a lot of price reductions. Now, what I can't track without going in and looking at every property that sold is what they accepted relative to what their list price was. Part of the challenge with that too is the stuff that's closing now. I closed a house last week. It went under contract at the end of February. So all the stuff that's closing now, a lot of it was under contract prior to this all happening. It'll be still trend another 3 or 4 weeks before the data comes out where we can see how offers relative to the list price are affected. But I can tell, I pulled the house off the market today. We're going to do a few things to it, put it back on. I had it at 140 initially. It should have been at 150, but I want a quick sale. If someone came in at, say, 130 and gave me a solid offer, would I take it to be done? Absolutely, because I have holding costs and that. So let me see here. This is a good question from Michelle. Are most lenders going to be okay with the gap in employment that people are off but go back because of COVID?
Actually, yes. So we discussed that quite a bit through our underwriting, staff. We recognize people didn't lose their job because they weren't doing it properly. People lost their job because of the pandemic. So at this point, we put the loan in a hold status. When they go back to work, they just have to show us they're back to work, and we can go ahead and get everything ready for a closing. We just had somebody, as a matter of fact, we had a client who lost his job. He actually went back to work. We were in final approval stage before it. We held that. And when they went back to work, he was back 3 days and we verified it and we issued the clear to close again. So lenders are understanding at this point that this isn't, the fault of the buyer. Right? If this dragged on for 6 months, we'd have to have a different talk.
A lot of people asking me about using rent income towards their GTI score calculations and all that. Talk a little bit about that. How long do they have to have it rented before they can count? What percentage of that rent are they counting? Is there a general rule or is it case by case?
Here's the general rule. As long as you can show some type of rental experience, okay? So for most people here, hopefully you've got some type of experience as a landlord. Generally, lender's going to say, we'll give you credit for 75% of whatever that rent is. Okay, so if you get $1,000 rent, we're going to give you credit for $750, and then we're going to subtract the mortgage payment out of that number. Okay, if your mortgage payment was $700, that means we're going to show you at a $50 a month profit on top of your regular income. If your mortgage payment was $900, then we're going to show you at a $150 loss, and we're going to add that $150 to your debt ratio.
Makes sense. Brian, give me your number again. I'm going to put it in the comments here for the folks. 219
730
730.
1822.
All right. Any other questions? I'm looking here, looking there. Well, that was super helpful tonight, Brian. Thank you.
You're welcome. Appreciate you having me on.
That was that. I will send out an email and all that to our regular attendees. I'll have your contact information. Brian's info is on our website, investnwigroup.com. It's also in the Facebook page. At the top of the page, we have a couple of stickies. One is all of our vendors there. And again, the vendors are paid vendors, but they're vendors because, we have relationships with them. We've used them. We like and trust them. Obviously, do your own due diligence with them. Ask them the questions you want. But, they're all people that we've done business with. So definitely worth, all their information's up there. Definitely worth reaching out to them. Quick question here. Does Caliber portfolio your loans or sell them all off?
So even when you service loans, you sell it to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac or Ginnie Mae. Caliber does service loans. Okay. We service over 90% of the loans we write. We're not the largest in the company, or in the country, but we're definitely up there. We've got just shy of 1 million customers who make payments to Caliber. Now, portfolio to me is a little bit different. Portfolio means, a non-Freddie Mac or non-Fannie Mae loan that, that we can do. Caliber actually had portfolio products. All right. So for instance, one of the products we had, if you filed bankruptcy on Tuesday and it was discharged on Tuesday, you could go get a loan on Wednesday. All right.
Shoot, I'm going to go do that.
Well, you might not like the terms we were offering, right? But that was a program we offered. A lot of banks offer, a lot of lenders offer some type of out of the box program like that. Most of that has gone away for the time being. Okay. That type of a program is really hard to package up and sell off to an investor today because they want, interest rates that would be out of this world. So if you're asking about servicing, yes, we do service. If you're asking about portfolio, I think you'll have a very hard time finding somebody who portfolios loans today.
Hey, we talked about this the other day, but we didn't bring it up. We have a lot of folks that do the burst thing where they buy it cash or maybe with a private lender, fix it up, put a tenant in it, and then try to do a cash out refi. What's the status of cash out refis right now?
Cash out refis are still going. I heard a rumor about one company saying they weren't going to do them for a while, but I can't verify that they did or didn't. Most companies I know still do cash out refinances. Not a big deal. Real quick for you guys, if you have a single family house, you're trying to cash out, you can go 75%. If you have, I'm talking about investment properties, right? So you can go 75%. If you have a multi-unit, you can go 70%.
Okay. I mean, the biggest thing for all this is call your lender because everything seems to be changing day to day, week to week. So before you make any big lending, borrowing decisions, call your lender, make sure you got all your documents in and you can get locked in. So awesome. Appreciate it. I think that's all the questions that we have. Thank you again, Brian. As far as our next meeting, I don't know if we're going to be able to do it in person or if we'll do it online again. And because of that, and the tax sale and with everything being up in the air, topics still up in the air. So we'll kind of play it by ear and kind of go from there. But definitely check out the Facebook group for updates. We will update you. I know the tax sale's been delayed. So as soon as we have information on when things are opening back up and when they're going to start to do stuff, we'll send an email out. We'll put, we'll put the information on Facebook as well. I know I saw on the county's website or Facebook page yesterday, the county is planning on opening back up, I think May 4th. So that will be nice for everybody that needs to get in there and get that. So we'll keep you posted. Have a good rest of your week. Stay safe. And this video was recorded, so it will be up on our Facebook page as soon as the Facebook page, the investor page, as soon as I figure out how to get it off of Zoom. So thanks again, and we'll catch you in a little bit.
Take care. Thanks again.